Hey guys, Suna here. Today I'll be recording my first long form video that I've released on my channel. I'll be showing you guys how I created this League of Legends thumbnail. It's a Lee Sin Jankos inspired thumbnail, and yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So the first thing I did was I grabbed here's all the assets I used. I grabbed a screenshot from the gameplay because this is one of those thumbnails where I wanted to showcase the gameplay in the corner. So what I done was I went on the video I was making a thumbnail for, and I just grabbed a screenshot from a random part of the video that I found suitable. You guys can use whichever one you find suitable for your thumbnail, of course. So what I done first is I got the part of the screenshot I wanted to put in the corner. If I'm not mistaken, it's around this much. Just crop it here. So what I do now is I create a layer mask. If you look here, the bottom on the button on the bottom corner, I create a layer mask. That way when I'm trying to erase something, I can easily just bring it back if I don't like it. So to show you an example, you go on the brush tool, you have the colors black and white. If you brush out, if you want to say, or rub out with the black brush, it of course deletes it, right? And let's say you've gone too far in and you want to bring some of it back, you either swap to the white manually, or you can press X to swap. You bring the white brush, the white color, and you can bring back any part that you want to bring back. So I think let's say just remove around this much. What I done after this now is I wanted to blur it out a bit and change the color slightly so that it's not too visible, you could say. So firstly I went to a camera raw filter and press spacebar to move the view, and firstly I increased the texture a bit to make it a bit clear, the clarity as well, make it slightly more clear as well. And then I went to the light section, and on the light section what I did was I upped the exposure by a small amount just to make it a bit more bright. Bright thumbnails tend to stand out better. I increased the contrast slightly, and I increased the highlights a bit, and that was pretty much it for this as well, just the blacks a bit as well. Now after this I went into the part that made it a bit more of a blue color. I went into the color section and I increased the temperature, or you could say decreased actually, by 11. So I moved it a bit closer to the blue section, and if you can see, if I go back, press Ctrl Z, it was a bit more of a greenish color. Now it's a bit more blue, and I added a slight purple tint to it, and slightly a bit of vibrance as well, just to make it a bit more, vibrant, you could say, colorful. And this gave me, it looks a bit out of place for now, but we'll fix it in a second. This is the before, kind of pale and not too colorful. This is the after, nicer in my opinion, at least, and nicer, it will suit the thumbnail more. So after this what I done was I opened the filter section and I went onto blur, and I got a Gaussian blur. Now why I do this sometimes is just depending on the thumbnail you're making, you don't want to make it too clear so that it just looks better sometimes when you blur it out a bit. The purpose of this being in the corner, you can't even see too much of what's going on anyways, is to add a bit of is to fill in the negative spaces of the thumbnail, plus showing a bit of what the gameplay is about. So I did a slight blur, which I think 2 would be fine. So now we've got the gameplay part out the way. So what we'll be doing next is we'll be grabbing the main subject of the thumbnail. If you're using someone's face, which in this case I am, you need to grab the image, which will be your main subject. And let me grab the Jankos one from here. In this case we'll be using Jankos, who's from Team Heretics. And let me remove the layer mask so that you can see exactly how I cropped it out. So usually what you could do to get the most accurate way of selecting and cropping out a subject is getting the pen tool and just go in bit by bit, and this usually is the most accurate way to crop out an image if you want, or a subject from a background. However, with Photoshop now, you can actually just, if you press W or click on the magic wand tool over here, I press W usually, you can click on select subject, and usually it does a good enough job where it just selects the whole subject. As you can see, it's already selected the subject that I'm using, and it's done a pretty good job of it. So what I'll do now is I will just click here on the bottom right on the layer mask. What this does is, just as before, it crops it out for us. It removes the background. However, if for example we want to clean up the edges, we can click on the brush. After we click on the layer mask first, we click on the brush, make the brush a bit smaller, and let's say I want to clean up the edges slightly. I can go on the white color, and I can, for example, bring back a bit of the background or a bit of the edges, so I can clean it up if I want to. If for example, let's just bring it some extra part out just for the sake of showing you. If now let's say there's a bit sticking out, you can go on the black just as I showed you earlier, and you can just brush a bit of it out. This is why typically I like to work with layer masks. It gives you the freedom of making mistakes. So now that we've masked out our subject and it's done a good enough job, especially for a thumbnail, it doesn't have to be exactly precise and clear, because thumbnails typically are small, so it doesn't need to be too detailed or perfect, if you'd like to say. So now that we have, let me bring it back exactly where it was here. Now that we have our subject here, what I done after this now is I wanted to make the theme of this thumbnail orange, because I'm using the skin Godfist Lee Sin, and it gives like a fire orange theme to it. So I wanted to do like a orange kind of outline around him, orange effects, orange colors. That was the main theme of the thumbnail. So what I did was, to get the exact color I used, one second, let me paste it here. Perfect. So I got the color here. If you see here, it's FFC047. That is the exact color I got. And what I done was I created a new layer from the bottom right, right click the layer and created a clipping mask. Well, now what a clipping mask does is, if I want to draw over the subject, it only sticks to him, nothing else of the background. So to show you an example, if it wasn't a clipping mask, it goes everywhere, right? And then I'd have to erase the parts that I don't like, which is too long. So to make it convenient, you create the clipping mask, and now you can comfortably just draw over wherever you want to draw. So initially what I done was I just added a nice orange tint, an orange just outline, you could say, on the edge of the subject. So let's finish up here, and then Control Z is to undo, by the way. Just a quick outline around him. Now we have a nice little outline around him. Now to make it blend better, because it is slightly unrealistic, you could say, to make it blend better, I go on the blending options over here, top right, and I scroll all the way down to overlay. So if you look at how it was before, it's a slight difference. So if you look at the face, for example, before it was just a flat brush, now it's just, it blends a bit better. Now next what I did is I added another, if you create a new layer underneath the clipping mask but on top of the subject, it automatically makes it a clipping mask for you. So what I done after that, after I got the initial slight outline, I increased the size of my brush and I done a bit more. So I don't directly draw over it because it becomes too much. I'll go a bit outside of it and I'll start adding a bit more of a tint around him. So a bit here, maybe a bit too much here. Increase the brush by a bit. Like this a little bit, a bit on the face as well, a bit on the bottom as well, and a bit here. And once again, I change the blending mode to overlay. And as you can see, it's a slight little bit of help. Stands out as well. And then I created one more. Actually, I might lower the opacity a little bit so it's not too strong. I created one more layer, but this one I done it pretty strong on him. So go like this, maybe. So now this is obviously a bit too strong. So what I done was, once again, go on the overlay And then I lowered the opacity a little bit as well. And that is pretty happy with how it's turned out so far. So that's how I got like the orange kind of outline and orange color tint on him. These blending modes help a lot with making things look a bit more realistic and different. So overlay is not the only one you could do. Even, for example, what's another one that can look good? Linear burn looks decent if you want to go for a darker theme. And even something like soft light is decent. But for this thumbnail, in my opinion, overlay does the best. So after we're done doing this orange outline, orange tint you could say, on Jankos, the subject, we get our second subject. And in this case, it was a character from League of Legends, being Lee Sin. So the whole video was about Lee Sin, so I decided to use Godfist Lee Sin. I thought it was the most suitable for the kind of style I was going for. So I dragged my image here, and just to show you how I get them pre-cut, I don't actually cut them myself or crop them myself. What I do is I go online, close this tab, go on Google, and I type in the skin that I want. So in this case, it was Godfist Lee Sin, and then I just type PNG afterwards, and you see people have already pre-cut it for you. Click on this link and it's already been pre-cropped. You just have to download it here. So that's typically how I find it. It could be any other skin you want, and usually there's always options for you online and you don't have to crop it yourself. After we get the Lee Sin, we place it somewhat behind him, but not too small where you can't see him, but not too big where he's taking the whole screen. Great, so I think this was approximately what I was going for. If we look here, fairly similar. It's in this position approximately. After this, what I done is I decided to add a bit of flames behind Jankos and in front of Lee Sin, behind Lee Sin. Now we have the main part of what will make the thumbnail stand out, and it's the flames. So what I done for that is get my flames from here, open it here. It's going to open Illustrator for us. Great, now we have our flames, the assets that we'll be using for this part. And just to show you where I get my assets from, usually I go on multiple websites, but one of them being freepik.com. Let's say, for example, you type something like flames. You scroll down. If you're not a premium member, you can click here on the free section, and you have multiple free assets that you could use. If you want a more cartoony flames cartoon, and then you'll get more of an illustrated one. There's a lot of things you can do. Other places I usually go to as well, for example, if you go on Adobe Stock, I know Adobe Stock is paid and it's very expensive. However, if you go here and then you scroll down to the free section, there's also some things you can get from here. So you type fire. Once again, you have some high quality assets you could use. So after I grabbed my flames, which I actually did end up grabbing from Freepik, they're called the Vector Realistic Burning Fire Flames. So after I grabbed those, the ones I decided to go with, if I'm not mistaken, it was this one. So I clicked on this flame. Let's Control C, Control V, put it as a smart object. Great, now we have our flame, the first flame we'll be using. And now obviously there's a black background around it, so you might be thinking, how are we going to get rid of it, right? You can't really just brush it out, otherwise you're going to start brushing parts of the flame, and if you use the pen tool, it's going to look too unrealistic, because flames usually have like a blur around the edge, which you could do yourself, but there's a quicker way around it. So what I do is let's place it where we wanted to before. So on this thumbnail, we placed it around the edges, here, over here, and behind Lee Sin as well. So let's go for the first section, which was around here. And now we have a black background here, so we don't have to worry about blending it out, right? However, now let's copy paste it and put another one in front of Lee Sin, because we did have one around here, a bit more down around here, right? So firstly, let's create a layer mask and rub out the parts that we don't need, which is here. We don't need this part here. Great, now that we're done erasing the part on the left that we don't need, now on the right side, we won't be erasing any of this. We'll be getting rid of it straight away, the black background. And how we do that is we go on the blending options on the top right, we scroll all the way down, and the one we use for this one is lighten. Now of course some of the fire is not showing as much. So what we do is we get the flames and we just bring it a bit up so it's more out there, more obvious. And if we don't need a part of it, we can just rub it out. So this part can go. And as you can see, the black background is just completely gone. It blends in with the background without you having to erase it yourself. If we go back on no blending mode, see it's black now. Scroll down to lighten and it just takes it away for you. Now you'll have to use different blending modes depending on the background color. So if it's a different color, you might have to use something different. However, it really does depend on what's behind the subject or what's behind the asset that you're using. So now that we've got this main part out of the way, what I've done after this now is I put some flames, a bit of flames behind Lee Sin. So we can copy the same flames from before. Control C to copy, Control V to paste. And we drag the flames behind Lee Sin. So we have one here. And since the background is black, we don't need to actually erase anything. And we grab and paste it again and put another one around here. Maybe around here. So what I want is this flame here to be behind him on the right side. So we'll create a blending layer mask, and we will grab the black color and we will erase the left that we don't need. We will click on blending mode and go on lighten. What we don't want is this part here behind it as well. Whoops, this is why you name your layers. Let's create the layer mask for this one, rub this out, and then now we bring this one back. This is looking a bit decent. You know what, actually let's name our layers. So what I'll do now is actually going back to the screenshot of the video I had. I'll go back to the layer mask that I created before, and we'll click on the brush, which is B, and we'll go to the white color this time. So why I'm doing this is because I do want the background behind Lee Sin to kind of be filled up, because I want less negative space. I don't want too much black. I'll keep this area black here for contrast, but I don't want too much black. Now as you see, the background from the flames is now showing because we didn't create this, we didn't use a blending mode here because we didn't think we need to. We didn't think we'd need it. However, what we can do now is go straight to lighten, and same thing as earlier, the black doesn't show. Let me move this a bit to the left. Perfect. So now that we're done with all the flames and the background, what I'll actually do next is I will actually bring back some of this background here, which I think I done even up towards here, right? Yep. Bring back some of the background so that this part doesn't matter for now, even though we don't want this part to show on the bottom. It's fine, it's not going to show later anyways. Once again, just to fill in the negative space, I brought back some of the background. Sorry, I had to cut the video for a second, but now that we're done with the background and the flames and everything, what we'll be doing next is doing the text, which is one of the most important parts of a thumbnail as well. So how I done the text is you can either click on here, the text tool, or you can click for a shortcut on your keyboard, you can just press T and it selects the tool for you. Click anywhere on the screen and now the text appears. Now the font we used is Impact, and the color will be blue, which to be precise it says 00C 0FF, and the style is italic. If you didn't see, it was already pre-done, but just right click the text and go on italic. Now let's type in the text we want, which is firstly Elite, and then click anywhere else on the screen and type in Lee Sin. Now bring them slightly together and now move them together and make them bigger. How I do that is I click on one of the texts and I click Control on the other layer, and you can move them together now, make them bigger together. Let me center this slightly. Great. Now before we move on to the layer styles such as the drop shadow and all the highlights and stuff, I'm going to add one thing onto this first. So start a new click on new layer, press B to go on your brush, get a soft round brush, and for the exact color we'll be using, it will be like a light blue, so B2E 8FB. and make the brush, oh no, sorry, make the brush maybe this size, and now just brush over parts of the text. So here's one, here's another, maybe here as well, maybe here as well. And what we'll do now is duplicate the text, actually group the text first. So click on both the layers, press here to group it, and then press Ctrl J on your keyboard to duplicate the layer. Now we have two texts. As you can see, I like to keep one just to be safe in case I mess about and I make a mistake. So hide this text for now, text this, and text copy. Now what we'll be doing is convert these two into a smart object, combine them together and convert them into a smart object. So put them together, right click and convert to a smart object. Now what we're going to do is click on the glow, you could call it, just the highlight we created earlier. Click on that layer, click on the layer mask, and now go back to your text, click on the thumbnail of the layer, which is here, click and hold Control and click it. Now it selects the pixels for you. So click once again, click Control, hold Control and click on the thumbnail. Now it selects the pixels for you. Now what we need to do is press Control, Shift and I. So you hold Control, hold Shift and press I. Now it's going to select outside of the text. Instead of inside, it's going to select outside. So just to show you an example, now if you were to draw over it, it only draws outside of it. Now we go back to the highlight that we created earlier and we go into the layer masks that we created, and now we just press B, go on the brush, go on the black color and just rub it out. Now it's a slight little highlight for now, but it'll make sense later on. So now what we do is we double click on the text. Now we can create a layer style, which is what will bring the text to life. And I used 5 different layer styles, and the first one I used was a bevel and emboss. So click on the bevel and emboss. It creates like a little slight 3D effect underneath it. If you can see the black on top, we don't need, but it's not going to show because of the shadow anyways that we put on later on, the drop shadow. So it does like a slight little 3D effect. And outer bevel style, smooth technique, depth is 126, direction up, size 6, soften 0. The angle is -96, altitude is 26, and it's a white and black screen multiply effect. Now the effect after this is going to be an inner shadow. So if you can see, if I zoom in for you, you can see the inner shadow is just a slight highlight at the top of the text over here as well. Gives it a nice little 3D effect, which will show better later on when there's more contrast. But just for now, if you can see, it's just a slight little highlight at the top. After that, we're going to add the inner glow. Now the inner glow is very, very subtle, so you can probably barely see it. Before, it's like a darker blue, you could say. Click on it. Is a very subtle bright, makes it slightly brighter, and it gives a nice little glow effect. It's very subtle. The effect for this is, oh, actually I didn't go through the inner shadow effect first. The inner shadow was a white normal blend mode, distance 4, size 6, and the choke is 0. And for the inner glow, this time it's a screen blend mode, opacity 7, white color, and the size is 81. And the last effect we'll be using actually, oh no, the second last is a satin. This is what really brings it to life. So if you click on the satin, what it does is it makes it like almost like a metallic look to it. So this is before, this is after. And with the satin, we go luminosity for the blend mode. The color is white, opacity is 82, distance is 208, and the size is 250. So that's for the satin. And then last but not least, the drop shadow. And drop shadow is something that will add contrast to behind the text, so that it doesn't just look empty behind it and it's easier to read. And how the exact effects I used were, or the numbers should I say, black color, opacity is 100, distance is 4, spread is 100, size is 14, and of course the angle is 90. So that's all the effects we'll be using. Now, why I added this, the glow from earlier, if you can see without it, it looks like this for now, right? However, if you change the blend mode from a normal blend mode to a color dodge, it gives it like a, you can see, like it's almost like a metallic look in the sense that you have like a strong white here and then blue on the outskirt. So if you see, it's not just complete blue, it's like a bluish white now. Now it looks a bit more metallic. You can obviously play about with it if you want to, for example, bring back a bit of it here by using the, going into the layer mask. Maybe if you don't like having that much, you can erase some of the edges out. It's up to you, to be honest, but this is the effect I used. Now, why I done the thing earlier where I selected the pixels and erased it is because look, if I bring it all back, you can see it really affects the edges sometimes, and it gives like a jagged effect and a blue that we don't really want. So that is exactly why I made you select the pixels and then erase it from the outside. So now it looks pretty clean. However, it's of course not exactly what this is. So how we got to that is we create a new layer underneath your text, and now we want to fill in the back with more black, like greater shadow, so that there's more contrast, right? You can fill it in with the brush yourself, but I want to make it exact. I want to make it look clean and precise. So how I done that, I click on the pen tool over here, which you can also press P as a shortcut, and now we just fill in the gaps that we want to fill. So maybe here as well. Actually, bring it here first. Perfect. And now we just close the pen tool selection. We right click on make selection, click OK, and now we just fill it with our black brush. You can obviously use the bucket if you want a bucket tool to just fill it in, but I just filled it in with the brush. So how I'm used to doing it. So now that we have the text, it's still, if we group the whole text into one group here, it's still pretty basic, right? Like you bring it here, not good enough. It stands out, but not good enough. So what we do now is we press Ctrl T to transform it. So after we press Ctrl T, now we can just move the edges so that we do the same effect that we had in the thumbnail we done, right? So you stretch the edge here, stretch the edge a little bit here, make it slightly bigger as well. Just play about with it until you get a look that you really like, right? So I think this is a bit perfect. So now we have the text done. We have the shadow in the back. We have the text done. Now, what I done to give it the effect I gave it here, which looks a bit like a, how do you explain, like a grainy effect, right? How I done that is I clicked on the text layer, click on filter, scroll all the way down to noise, add noise, and then I added a noise of approximately maybe 3. Let me zoom in a little bit so that you can see it better. Maybe 4's too strong, maybe 3.5. Now, as you can see, now it has the grainy effect from earlier. However, I don't really like how there's blue here, but not enough blue here, right? So we'll go back to the highlight we added earlier, and we'll just start filling in the gaps that we want to fill in. So maybe a bit of blue here. We'll erase this later, don't worry. A bit of blue here, maybe a bit of blue. Now, to get rid of these ugly parts that we don't want again, hold Control, click on the text, delete in text. Once again, hold Control Shift, press I to invert the selection. Now we go back to here, back to the highlight we created, and now we just erase the parts that we didn't want. Go on the black color, just erase these parts that we didn't want. Now, as you can see, these ugly parts that we didn't like earlier are now gone. Perfect. Now we have the text completed. One more thing we actually forgot to add is the flame. If you can see here, whoops, we had a bit of a flame behind the text here, right? Well, can't really click on it now, but it's the flame in the background now. So we copy the copy the flame we had earlier, Control C, and then Control V to paste it. Bring the flame behind the text. Maybe around here is okay. But we have to cover this part here as well. So maybe make it slightly bigger. This works. And then change the blender mode once again to lighten. And now we have the flame that we had over here. flame is done here. Something that I tend to add to some of my thumbnails, which is very it's subtle but it adds a nice little effect, is if I go back to my assets actually, first thing I added was this, which is like a smoky orangey effect look, you could call it. So the effect we used here, what I actually done is all I did was I brought it here a little bit, I lowered the opacity. Let's create a layer mask, rub out a bit of it so it's not completely on top of the text, and rub out a bit from here because we don't want this edge on this like border edge, right? I'm gonna rub this out, and this just gives like some of the sparks that you saw earlier, right? These little sparks I have here. Now after this, what we actually used is, this is another one of my assets that I used. Flip this horizontally here, and then what I done was I lowered the opacity to maybe this much, and then I also copy pasted it and flip it horizontally, and I brought it here. As you can see, I also have a bit of it here. Adds to the little spark effect once again. Maybe make the opacity slightly stronger. Perfect. So the next effect I used was actually this one. Now we grab this. Now obviously now we have the black background issue again. All we have to do is scroll down, find the blending mode that we like. So I think linear dodge will work fine. Perfect. Oops. Let's click here. And then for this one, what I done was it gives it like a, once again, like the orange hint over here, right? On top of Jankos. A bit more of an orange hint on top of him. But I don't like how it covers the text as well, because then now the text just looks a bit blurry. So what I done is I created the layer mask once again. Press B on the brush and just, it's the wrong color. Now we just erase the part that we don't like. Once again, now it's just pretty much on Jankos himself, right? But it's obviously a bit too overpowering and too strong, so we'll just lower the opacity a little bit. And now it's just a subtle orange effect that we have. After this, what I used as well was 98, this one. And for this one, actually, we used a different blending mode to get rid of the black background. We used screen. So obviously, as you can see, it's also strong. So we want to remove the orange from the text. This text, we want it to stand out, right? If it's too orange when you zoom out, it doesn't look too clear. You want to remove this orange from the text. Small little sparks are okay, but we want to remove the orange so that it's not too strong on the text. And once again, adds like a subtle orange effect to him. Maybe lower the opacity so it's not too strong. As you can see, it's starting to come to life, similar to this. And what do we use next? We used 31 is the one I used actually. So we paste this one here to get rid of this one. I like the glow on the top, right? Adds a nice little glow, and the dots are kind of nice as well. So for this one, the blending mode I used once again is screen, gets rid of the background. As you can see, now it's like a little glow we have on the top and on the sides as well. So for this one, actually, I don't want to make it too strong. So once again, I want to remove it from the text. I want to keep the text by itself, and then maybe just remove some of it on Lee Sin, because we also want Lee Sin to be a bit visible, a bit off Jankos's face. We want his face to be visible as well. And yeah, this is looking good so far. So now it's just pretty much like orange dots here and here. Lower the opacity once again so it's not too strong. This looks fine. And then once again we use the same one, which you could have just copy pasted, but press screen. And for this one, I pretty much erased all over, right? I just kept, I don't want to put it in the same areas. I just kept it pretty much maybe just a bit here, so you can see the glow on the top. And in here I wanted like the orange tint as well. So without it, it's not there. With it, it's like an orange tint you can see in the corners. I like the orange tint it adds. It's not too strong. It's a nice little subtle orange effect. Now if we group these together just so it's not too messy, let's just call them, I don't know, dots, whatever. What I like to add, which I had inspiration from another artist that does this often. I like to add depth in the corners, right? How I do that, usually I'll like, for example, cut out a bit of Lee Sin or put him in the corner. But I made a thumbnail in the past using Jin. So once again, you can do the same thing. Go on Google, type in Shanghai Scrolls Jin PNG after, and you can get a cut out version of Jin. Now we don't want this Jin. All we want is this little, the end part of his gun, right? So grab the pen tool, click here, curve it a little bit, and zoom out. So the next thing I like to add after is something that's is very subtle, but it adds a bit of depth to the thumbnail, which I actually got inspiration from another artist that does this. So what I done is go back into my assets. I grabbed the Jin one. So this is the skin of Shanghai Scrolls Jin. So as I showed you earlier, all you need to do is copy go on Google, type in the skin, so Shanghai Scrolls Jin, type in PNG after, and you'll get it already pre-cut for you. So now all we need is the end part of his gun. Grab the pen tool, cut out the end part of his gun, and oh whoops, I didn't realize I didn't fill it here. So cover the whole part of this gun, right click, make selection, and now all we need to do is Ctrl+C to copy, delete the layer, paste it back, and take it out of the group actually. Oops, there we go. So now we just have to add it to the corners as we done with the last other example of the thumbnail, right? So we add this in the corner, maybe here, maybe. But I don't like to make it too strong, right? So I like to add a bit of a blur to it so that it's not, there we go. So it blends a bit better and it's not too strong. And add another one, copy paste, add another one here. And just to save time, I'll copy paste the ones from before and then come back. Perfect, there we go. So we have the corner here, we have this part, and we have this part now. And this is just like a tiny bit here, because I don't want to do all four, right? If you do all four, it looks too much. Just a subtle in the corner, sometimes even just this much is enough. But I like to do usually 3 parts of the thumbnail. Now, if you see before, it was like this, after is like this, it adds a little bit of depth to it, right? So it's a nice little bit of depth to it. And we're almost actually done here. The last thing I like to add is, if we go on maybe like an orange color, create a new layer, take it outside of the group, go on orange, maybe around here is fine, something like this works maybe. Just click on a random color and then just add in like a little bit of glow around the thumbnail, like maybe here, maybe here a little bit. Now just, it's not too strong, but just makes it a bit brighter and adds a little bit of a glow to it. And yeah, pretty much this is the thumbnail complete. However, there's one more thing I like to do at the end of each thumbnail is group up everything, copy the group, paste it. After you paste it, press Ctrl+E. Now it creates it into one layer, right? Convert it into a smart object so we can edit it if we need to. Now I like to add a little bit of noise to it, maybe just 1 is fine. Adds a little bit of a grain to it, it's very subtle. And one more thing is actually camera raw filter. This is what can bring a thumbnail to life, or just any piece of art to life. It's the main part of a lot of piece of work. So for this, I like to add a bit of light, make it a bit brighter. Brighter thumbnails always work better. Slight bit of contrast, not too much, and maybe bring the highlights up a bit. Go on the effects. Now what you can do here to make it a bit stronger is go on texture, up the texture by maybe this much. So if you go back, you can even go on his face and you can see before it was like this, after it's like this. It's subtle, but it does affect the thumbnail. So up the clarity a tiny bit, not too much, because if you do it too much, it looks a bit too awkward. So up the clarity a little bit, and I think I'll make the vibrance a bit stronger, and this should pretty much be it. So we go back. As you can see before, if I hide it, it's a bit darker and more dull. Now it's a bit stronger and more texturized. And yeah, this is pretty much it done. Yeah, I appreciate all of you for watching. It's my first ever tutorial I've ever done, and it's my first bit of long form content I've done on this channel. So I'm still working my way around it. Maybe made it a bit longer than it should have been, but I wanted to explain everything bit by bit to make sure you guys are comfortable. I hope you guys enjoyed. This will be the first of many tutorials. You can click on the description to see my other pieces of work, so that maybe you can request a different tutorial. And yeah, feel free to join my Discord that I created a few days ago. I'll upload free fonts there that you could use, assets, advice if you need any advice on how to improve your thumbnails, sometimes tutorials that are exclusive to the Discord as well. Feel free to join, it'll be in my description. Just started it a few days ago, but any help you need, I'll be there. And hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, take care.